with another juicy topic for you today. But before we get started, for those of you who are new to our communities and not are familiar with who we are, we're just going to quickly introduce ourselves. So my name is Jessica Melnick. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, the founder of the Anti-Arthritis Method, the host of the Happy Joints Arthritis Solutions Group, and I help both women and men with various forms of arthritis get back to living the way that they choose to, not the way that they have to. And I will pass it on to you, Casey.
Yep. I am Casey Kephart. I'm the founder of the Feel Good Formula, and I am a functional medicine nutritionist. I work with women with all different types of autoimmune diseases to get you back to the activities you love to do, trash those symptoms, get your life back, basically. And I reside in St. Petersburg, Florida, and behind me is Mr. Gustav. So
He is so cute.
yes.
Rocky was just whining. He's not in here right now, but yeah, he thinks it's nice outside because the sun's shining, but it's about minus 15 here this morning. So he's not going outside until it warms up.
Yeah.
He just doesn't believe me when I tell him it's too cold. So the life of being a cat mom, hey?
Right. Oh.
So today we are going to talk about stress, how it affects our health, how it can play into arthritis or autoimmune conditions, and what we can actually do about it without having to run away from our lives and go live in an ashram somewhere or go to a spa for a week. We're going to give you some tips that are nice and simple, and you can take the ones that resonate with you and leave the others. So as we get started here, let's talk about the difference between chronic stress versus acute stress. So when we're talking about acute stress, we're talking about things like, studying for a major final exam, having the birth of a new baby in the family or getting a new pet, first day at a new job or a new school, things like getting married. So even good stresses are still stressors. Competitions that we may be entering into, buying a house, any other major decision, any major moves like to a new city, career changes, all those kinds of things. So some of those really big stressors that are, time limited usually, they're a time limited event. They don't continually go on forever. But chronic stress is acute stress that doesn't go away. So this is where it gets to be long term. So things like going through a divorce process, especially if you've got, splitting custody and assets with the other person, a death in the family, going through a period of grieving is a chronic stress. Being in a job that we absolutely hate is a chronic stress. Having toxic relationships. So being in a relationship, whether it's our partner, whether it is a close family member or a friend, that is just an unhealthy relationship. Things like building a business. Casey and I know all about that. Having chronic health issues. So I'm sure our community can relate to that. I know Casey and I have been there. Financial problems. So all these things add up on top of each other. So it doesn't just have to be one stressor. All of these things can really add up and take a toll on us. So I'm going to pass it to you, Casey, if you want to talk about how stress can manifest in the body and what it looks like from the outside.
Yep. So oftentimes we'll get these symptoms and we just think it's a bad day, but these symptoms tend to not go away, or they are reoccurring, or they're triggering other diseases in your body, which we'll get to in a little bit too. So some things to look out for when you're under stress and you can realize it's affecting your body is mood swings. We're often maybe a little bit more irritable. We're not as perky and happy in the morning or at night when we come home or when we leave for work. Depression and anxiety, brain fog or forgetfulness. I know when I am under a lot of stress, brain fog is huge for me. Fatigue. It's overwhelming to be stressed out. Your body is stressed out and it's getting tired from being stressed out. Irritability, like I mentioned, worse PMS symptoms, having no period is another sign of stress. Lack of libido, aka no sex drive. You just want to go to bed. Acne or skin irritations. I know when people are very stressed out, they break out. Usually, when you're stressed too, you eat more sugar, right? Which produces more acne as well. Autoimmune symptoms or a flare, you'll call it, more pain or muscle stiffness, heightened emotions. So maybe it's not mood swings, but you're just more sensitive. You're more sad, or everything is just more peak for you. I know when I am super stressed out, sometimes I will just cry. I don't even know what I'm crying about. I just cry. And right there, right then and there, you can just, I know to say to myself, okay, I am too stressed out. I need something to happen to lessen this. I have all the notifications going off right now. Headaches and migraines. Cravings for sugar. So usually when we are stressed out, our body says, give us sugar, give us some glucose, which just makes things worse. So don't give in to that. And lack of sleep or disrupted sleep. So oftentimes our brains cannot shut off when we are constantly thinking about our stress, or our cortisol level is out of whack, which is a hormone inside of us. So it's not just we're experiencing stress, we're experiencing all of these other things now because of the stress. So we're 10 timesing our condition.
I wanted to add too with the cravings for sugar, it's also really common to have cravings for salt because our adrenals need salt. And when we are chronically stressed out, our adrenals really, really take a beating, and they need salt. And so that's, cravings for salty things. And it's not that time of the month. That is a sign too that maybe you're a little bit on the stressed out side.
Mm-hmm.
And, in addition to having these symptoms and what being overly stressed looks like, it can cause a lot of different ailments in the body. And so I think that we all intuitively know that stress affects how we physically feel. So when it gets, when it's really prolonged and it's been going on for a long time, we can develop things like autoimmune conditions, hence arthritis and all the other ones out there. Again, adrenal fatigue and burnout. Burnout, oh my goodness, that is a huge one. Some signs of burnout, and I've experienced this myself, being really, really irritable, being really quick to cry or like want to lash out, being exhausted, just tired all the time, even if you've been sleeping. Sometimes your sleep quality isn't very good, but sometimes you might even sleep and then you just wake up feeling tired. Just feeling like helpless or hopeless and not wanting to really, like, you're not looking forward to anything. So it can look like depression as well. Those are some things to look for if you are thinking that you might be burnt out and needing to make some changes in your life. Other physical ailments that we can develop because of chronic and prolonged stress is leaky gut, having inflammation in our gut system, which just leads to more autoimmune conditions because our immune system is on high alert because it's trying to protect us from the toxins that are leaking out of our inflamed gut. IBS symptoms, so lots of digestive problems. I think we've all experienced having digestive issues when we've been stressed out. I know that's one of the first things I experience is that knot in your stomach, just not feeling like you're digesting your food properly. Very, very common. Things like skin conditions like eczema, psoriasis, acne. Again, that's a big one. Other conditions like fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is not technically considered an autoimmune condition by the medical community, but it is related to so many autoimmune conditions. It's kind of this mystery illness, that I think the medical community is finally realizing it's actually a real thing. Also chronic fatigue, another one of those things that's kind of the mystery illness that our medical community doesn't quite know how to deal with. Very commonly associated with autoimmune conditions in general. So it's just, I think both of those are a point where our bodies just can't take any more stress. It's just too much for too long, and something has to give. So you're getting sick more often, like getting more colds. You're catching every little bug that your kids or grandkids catch. Having viral infections, bacterial infections, bladder infections, UTIs, all of these things. When you're just more susceptible to getting sick more often, it's because your poor body is just overrun and it needs a break.
Yeah.
I know this sounds really depressing, but I think it's a really important topic to talk about, because I think so many of us are running on overwhelm and stress, and we need to just be able to recognize it so we can actually do something about that. So we're going to talk about that. Unless there's anything you wanted to add to that, Casey, before we get into the more.
I do. Yeah. So basically, stress increases your cortisol level, which is a hormone. It increases your cytokines in your body, which is the inflammatory cells in response. And all of this pokes holes in your gut lining, which equals a leaky gut, which then, if you've listened to our other videos, leaky gut then contributes to your autoimmune flare, an autoimmune disease in general, or another chronic inflammatory disease. So essentially, we're increasing all of the inflammation mechanisms in our body with stress. So it's super, super important to be on top of your diet when this happens, to be on top of your self-care, your stress management, to reach out to people for help. So how do we manage stress? What do we do in a stressful moment? Everybody does something different. I do something different than Jessica, and vice versa. But some things that you can do that have research behind it is deep breathing. As simple as breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it, and then exhale through the nose, and then sigh it out. It's something free. You can do it at your desk. You could do it in the car. You can do it at the grocery line, or even when talking to somebody. I've seen it happen before too in a conversation when things are very stressful and you see this deep breath. I'm like, I know what you're doing. But it works because you really can't think of anything else while you're deep breathing, and you're giving your body that chance to calm down and to unwind from that tight ball of stress that our body is in. Another thing would be move. Get that energy out, because when you're stressed, it's pent up energy inside of you and we want to release it. But also when we move, we release dopamine and endorphins and serotonin for our brain. And these are the feel-good, I was just going to say the feel-good formula. These are the feel-good hormones.
It's part of the feel-good formula.
Right, exactly. That our body needs and wants and craves. So movement is medicine. So take a walk to the bathroom if that's all you can do, or walk around the block, walk outside and get that vitamin D as well, or stretch. You're still getting that blood moving, and blood is very healing for the body. Journaling. I know not everybody is a fan of journaling, but it can really help just writing out anything and everything. My friend does poetry instead of journaling, and this really helps her. Something creative and also getting your thoughts out at the same time. Another friend does a video blog. He'll just record himself venting and talking, and that seems to work for him. Listening to uplifting music or podcasts or shows or books or stand-up comedy, whatever floats your boat in that department, do it. Don't feel guilty about it. Calling a friend or family member that is positive and will give you a listening ear instead of just tell you what you need to do when you don't ask for it. We all just need that one person to just vent to. And if you have a friend like that, call them. They'll be happy to do it. Doing a hobby or something that is fun. When I was growing up, when I got really stressed, and I didn't even realize I was doing this when I was stressed, but I would go in the driveway and go play basketball. It was something that just like released the stress from me, and I forgot about it for a minute. It was movement, it was exercise, and it was something that I thoroughly enjoyed doing. Pet an animal. told you about my cat Gustav. He is the best cuddler in the world. And I hug him so much and cuddle him when I am so stressed out. And even when I'm crying, he will come up to me and just love me. So if you have a pet, take advantage of that. And there is so much research behind an animal's love and affection, and petting an animal can increase that and those endorphins in you. Write lists. Sometimes we have so many things going on in our head that is stressing us out, but it's also stressing us out to remember the dang list. And we just keep it on replay in our heads. Write it out. Write a whole list out. And I know when I do that, like sometimes I can get really stressed out by just like looking at the list. But it is so much satisfaction, one, to have it out of your head, but two, to cross it off. If you are that person, do that. Jessica, do you want to take some other ones?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to say like make one point too about all these things that we're mentioning, because we're giving a lot of different ideas. But I think it's really key to remember that like you don't have to do all these things, or there's no right way to do them. And you don't have to spend tons of time on these things either. Like Casey, you were saying, everyone has a different thing that works for them and things that they're not that like excited about. I know for me, I don't like meditating. And I've often felt guilty about that, because you always read it's so good for you. And yes, scientifically, it has been proven that it's good for you. But for me, I would just try to avoid it. And that would stress me out more, because I'd be trying to avoid meditating because I didn't like doing it. So I think it's just really finding what works for you and within the time frame that you have. So like even with exercise, sometimes I literally only have 10 minutes, but if I can do 10 minutes, it just makes such a huge difference. So I think, it can just be a few minutes of your time. It doesn't even 5 minutes, to do some of these things. And like I said, everyone has a different thing that works for them or doesn't work for them. You might have to try a couple of different things to see what floats your boat and what doesn't, and that's cool too. Another thing I think is really important, changing the environment that you're in. So I know sometimes like when you work from home, like myself or Casey, it feels really good to like get out for a little bit, if you can in your day, between appointments, go for a walk, go to a coffee shop, just for a different environment, being around other people. Sometimes, and I know this sounds really funny, but I enjoy going grocery shopping. It makes me feel good just to like get out, walk around, go, try a new recipe, maybe like new food, and just kind of be around other people, and just like getting out of the house can feel really good. Another one is getting sunshine. And I know like Casey, where you live, that is probably a fairly simple thing to do, because you're in Florida. For some of us in the Northern Hemisphere, it's a little trickier than that. But if it's not bitterly cold where you are, even just getting some sunshine, if you can get out for a little bit, even if it's cold out, just to have that sunlight and exposure is really, really important. It's good for your, what is the word? I'm having a brain freeze this morning. Your circadian rhythm. It's really important for that. It helps you sleep better, when you're getting some sunlight in the morning. Asking for help. Oh my goodness. I tell my clients this all the time, because I feel like women especially are so reluctant to reach out and ask for help. We don't want to bug anybody. And it's like we're socialized to do all the helping, but never ask for help, which is kind of silly, because then you have this like all these women who are willing to help each other out, except not, feeling good about taking help or accepting help from other people. But I always say, like, if you would want your friend to accept help from you because it feels good to help and you want to because you care, it's the same thing. Your friend wants you to accept their help as well. So I would say yes, like learning how to accept help and being okay with that, even for members of your family too. If you feel like maybe your the amount of household chores and things that you have is just disproportionate to what everybody else has going on in the house, and you have your busy life, whether it's work or your other responsibilities, talk to them about, spreading the load around a little bit so that you don't feel so overwhelmed. So you have more time to do things to take care of yourself. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Another one, yeah, going for a car ride. I think sometimes people like we were saying, it's just good to kind of get out of the house, go for a little drive. Maybe if it's like too cold to walk, or sometimes just driving. I know Casey, you like to drive sometimes when you're like,
I've called you I've called you venting while driving.
yeah,
It helps. Different environment.
absolutely. I know sometimes if something's bothering me, Andrew and I will go for a walk, and he just like listens to me, just getting out of the house. And sometimes too, I know having a talk with like another person while you're driving, apparently it's easier to open up because you're not like looking at each other necessarily, like
Mhm.
continuous eye contact. It's more you're like facing forward. So sometimes people who are less likely to divulge information are more likely to feel less threatened to do it in a car ride. So, interesting
Interesting.
tidbit. Scheduling a night off to rest, to do nothing, or to go out with your friends if you'd rather get out with your friends and need some social time. Having a date night, maybe getting a babysitter if you have the younger kids so that you can have some time to connect with your person. And that is really, I think, healing, and it's just to connect with somebody that you love is really, really, I think, healing and calming and just makes you feel really good. And sometimes doing nothing and being alone is also what you need. I know I go back and forth. I'm kind of an introverted extrovert. No, I'm an extroverted introvert. Definitely more introverted. So I enjoy being on my own. And I know that after I've had, let's say, a weekend of a lot of visiting, even though I've enjoyed it, I need some time by myself. And I've always been that way. I recharge by having some time by myself. But then I also get to a point where I'm like, oh, I'd love to, go hang out with a friend or go see family or whatever it is. So, yeah, those are some other ones. Did you want to talk about a few more, Casey?
Yeah. I am in full agreement, or whatever the word is, of hiring a house cleaner. I have been doing it for a couple months now just because I cannot be bothered to clean anymore. And it's just one less thing off your plate. And if that's what's going to get you to calm down a little bit more, whether because it's the act of cleaning that you're dreading, or you physically can't do it, or you just like a clean house and that makes you feel better and less stressed, do it. They're not that expensive. Um, and then scheduling PTO. We sometimes are made to feel guilty with scheduling PTO, or we feel guilty from our own past experience. But that's the reason we have PTO, is to take it and to rewind and de-stress and reflect. So don't feel guilty on taking that just for yourself and laying on the couch if that's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Setting boundaries. Oftentimes we are very stressed because we have no boundaries in our life and we let everybody walk all over us. We are a yes woman or yes man, and that is not feasible for the rest of your life or for a chronic inflammatory disease. We need to learn how to set boundaries to protect our space, to protect our time, our stress levels, our health, everything. And it is a hard thing to do, especially when you have people around you who don't know what boundaries are and don't respect boundaries. So we've done videos on boundaries if you want to go back and listen to those on our YouTube videos, or we are more than happy to do another video on boundaries as well. Thinking ahead is another one. I implement this every single day of my life, but if I didn't, I would be more chaotic every single day because I don't know what is happening and things are hitting me in the face left and right because I didn't think about them beforehand. So again, with writing lists, write out your to-do list for the day, your calendar, whatever mechanism would work for you. We need to think ahead and prepare so things can come easier, more organized, and less chaotic. And then I think that was the end of the list. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a lot that we had to talk about today. So there's so many different options for mitigating stress that don't take a ton of time, that are going to make a huge difference in how you feel. And yeah, if you are feeling that you can't even take time, 5 minutes a day to try to manage your stress, then I really, really encourage people, look at your life, look at your stressors, maybe even make a list if it helps make things more clear in your mind. Maybe it is time to make some major changes in your life. Maybe that's necessary in order to get rid of something that has become a chronic stress. Maybe it is time to let go of a relationship. Maybe it is time to look at changing jobs. It's, even though those are big decisions, sometimes we need to find the source of the major stress, and not necessarily, I know you can't get rid of all of them sometimes, but you can have to be like creative sometimes to think of ways that you can minimize it a little bit so that you are feeling better and managing it a little bit better. So we know we're always going to have stress to deal with, but sometimes we do just need to take a look at it really clearly and see what we need to do in order to shift that a little bit so it's not so overwhelming.
I would even say too, if you're finding that your autoimmune disease is not going away as fast as you would like it to, or at all, or you keep having chronic flares more than you think you should. In general, we shouldn't be getting any flares, but look at your stress level. It is probably the biggest underlining cause of why we get flares, at least for Jessica and I, it is. Diet would be another one, but oftentimes we don't think about our stressors, or we're naive to how stressed we actually are. So really digging deep into that and adjusting your life to be less stressful is going to be super important for your healing journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. Let us know if you have any questions. And hey, we're also open to ideas of other things that you may like us to talk about. So if you have some topics that are related to arthritis or autoimmune conditions, let us know. And you might just see us talking about that on one of our little episodes. So enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. I will be back on Thursday to share another recipe with you. And both of us will be back next week.
Bye, everybody.
All right, take care.